some other, or maybe not the first on the list of the most impactful, but maybe the next level. I think this is going to be a movement that really changes America for the better. And I think, like you were saying, Holden, like sometimes you're like, oh man, like, I'm going to go do this volunteering, and that's 4 hours out of my Saturday, and sometimes that's work. But like, you get there and you're connecting with people, and you're telling them about the things that we're going to do, and the what we're going to try and achieve, and it's really exciting. And I look back on the volunteering I've done, and I'm like, man, like I'm so glad that I've been a part of this. Like, it's not like cotton candy, but it's very, very meaningful.
Yeah.
And I think it's just really cool to kind of make a movement that's this important, like a part of your life. I mean, like, I didn't know Holden until we met at the Texas convention, and he's a really cool guy. So it's just cool to connect with people, and just kind of be like, yeah, I'm going to look back at this time. Different America goes through different historical periods, and I think it's pretty clear. Maybe there's a non-political party organization, 10 years from now that appears that winds up doing a lot of the work that Forward is trying to do. Maybe we missed out or something. I don't know, but it's pretty clear that one way or another, like, this gerrymandering duopoly baloney system is on its way out. It's just not working for anybody. And so I think Forward is going to be the organization that takes it down. I just think it's just really cool. It's just really cool to be a part of that, and just to watch all the other people who are part of it and helping build it up. So I really encourage you guys to check it out.
Yeah, you're pretty cool too, Justin. I'm glad I got to meet you. Yeah, it's, in that, at the event in Houston, you meet so many people from across the aisle, like just from everywhere across the spectrum. And personally, that's kind of how I feel at home. Like, there's people there's kind of more liberal people who might feel at home in an echo chamber, like a liberal echo chamber, or conservative people who feel more comfortable in, a different echo chamber. But I feel most at home when I'm in like this crowd of people who all disagree on things and all are, united and there for help each other, but we don't have to agree on everything. I mean, I met people in Houston who, some people had flown in from New York, some people flew in from California, and there was one person I met who had just come from a couple miles away, and they were like, yeah, I just thought I'd check this out. I'm sick of the duopoly. I'm sick of how politics are. And just heard of the Forward Party the other day and thought I'd come check it out. And by the end of the event, they were like, I am all on board. This is great. I'm a forwardist. This is fantastic. And there were so many people like that. A woman who flew into New York for that was telling me, how she was saying, she's like, I hated President Trump and I hate President Biden for completely different reasons, but I can't say that, or, because people, if you say one or the other, then the response is just like, oh, so you're a Republican, or, oh, you're a Democrat. And her response was just, no, like, they're both terrible for very, very different reasons. Both of them are not going to help the country, and I appreciate that Forward has this space where you can come together and say, forget which one's worse. It doesn't matter, because they're both failing miserably, and we have to change the whole system. And so I'd encourage absolutely everybody in the space to, attend. If you're interested, the best thing you can do is just attend an event in person. Online, these online meetups are fantastic. I'm so happy that we get to have these chats and these get to talk for a few hours every week. But the in-person campaigning and meeting up with people is just a whole other ball game. That's so important. And it energizes you. It really does. Like, it looks like, not fun or like work on its face if you're out volunteering, but it doesn't feel like that at all when you're doing it. When you're doing it, you have this sense of like, I'm changing things. That conversation I just had with somebody changed their perspective. When I was in Iowa, for example, going just door to door, there were people who they'd come outside on their porch, with their coffee, and they would talk for 45 minutes about tax policy because they're just really passionate, and they would love to be like, yeah, you guys want to talk about politics? Like, that's absolutely what I would love to do. There's so many people like that, and those people aren't getting a voice in the current two-party system. And I'm like you were saying, Justin, I'm really happy that Forward is here to be this landing ground for people like that, people like you and me and everyone else in the space. So I think we're going to run for 15, 20 more minutes. So Justin, I know I'll turn it over to you, and anybody else who would like to come up and give some final thoughts, cover a few more things, ask another question, feel free.
Yes, we definitely would love to hear what you guys have to say. I just wanted to slide in there. We'd love it if you come to our in-person meetups and volunteer. But another thing we'd also love is if you donate money to Forward. That helps a lot. I know it's funny. It's like weird. Like, oh, is this guy asking for money? I don't get a commission. I'm just saying. The Democrats and Republicans have deep pockets. I mean, one of our things that we all, I think, most people on this call, I don't know what everyone here thinks, but one of the things we're all not happy about is they got millions of dollars. Well, if you're in a position where you like make a lot of money at your job or whatever, and you're like, I'm really busy with work, I guess I can't do anything. Wrong. You can give Forward money, and we really appreciate that. I mean, I think it's great. Forward's got, Allie was here earlier. Holden and I are volunteers. Holden will be, I think, an intern starting in January with Forward National. But Allie works with Forward National, and bottom line is, we're using those dollars to try and hire staff who can have a positive impact. So I believe in Forward. That's why I volunteer my time. But it sure helps to have people. It sure helps to be able to afford to pay people who can work 40 hours a week on this stuff, because that can be a big game changer. And honestly, like, if we're tired of the money in politics, it's kind of like we use the parties to destroy the parties. Maybe we can donate to this organization and have an impact so that you don't have to spend as much money in the future to have a political impact. So, I think if your question is what's the number one thing I can do, absolutely donating your time, particularly if you have expertise, like donating your time to help your Forward party like deal with policy issues in that area. Julie Cornegay is a Texas volunteer who's an accountant. She helps us as our treasurer in Forward Texas. It's great. So especially if you can donate time in a specialist way, that's super helpful. But if you're sitting here saying, hey, I don't know if I can donate time, you got kids or 3 jobs or something, whatever it is that stops you from being able to donate time, donating money is also really, really helpful. And just reaching out to your local state party, forwardparty.com, join the movement. There's a little button click for reaching out to your state party. They've got a better idea of what they need than I do. But yeah, definitely anyone who wants to come up and speak, I would love to hear people's comments. Any thoughts or questions or concerns. We haven't had anybody come on and tell us problems with the Forward Party, which I love to hear, because if people don't tell us what's wrong with us, like, how are we going to improve? That's my take on it. But yeah, I think that I get really excited whenever I really get to thinking about the Forward Party, just because it's like competition is so good. Like, it really brings out the best in people. Like, I mean, I'm not that into sports, but athletic competition really, encourages people to, like, try their best. And I think it really brings out the best in the athletes, because they're pushing themselves and they're excelling far better than they ever would without competition. And I think a lot of Forward Party's reforms are about competition for the political realm. I mean, there's politicians, I could name specifics, people on the far left, the far right. There's politicians who I'm not happy with, and I think everyone here is not really happy with them. But I think part of why they're so not great is because they don't have a lot of competition in the situation that they're in, and so sitting here in this circumstance where people are entrenched and they want job security. I mean, I don't want to get fired from my job, so everybody wants job security. That makes sense, and they've kind of devised this super anti-competitive system that's like kind of the opposite of, I think, what democracy should be. I think I look back on past movements in U.S. history, like one that comes to mind is like the movement from just property owners to a broader group of people. And I just wonder, why didn't they have the broader group of people in the first place? Why were all these people restricted? And I think the question for our time is why do we have this circumstance that kind of privileges people who happen to align with these two parties? Like, I don't align with the two parties at all. Why am I kind of shut out more because I'm partly with one party, part with another? And I think it sucks when there's a circumstance that's inadequate and imperfect, but it's also an opportunity for us to kind of build into our lives, working to make that change. And so I think that's really cool. I think it's really, really cool. I don't know. Competition. Like, I mean, I'm the type of person who just thinks it's like, man, you get groups competing against each other. They really try a lot harder, and they do a lot better.
Yeah, they absolutely try a lot harder. I mean, I've talked a lot about incentives tonight. I keep harping on that, but that is like really what it comes down to in my mind. I mean, if competition is absolutely beneficial, no matter what side you're on. If you just think about incentives, I mean, just to give you an example, take the 2020 election. Um, if Joe Biden and Donald Trump are going to have very, very different calculations of what they should be doing to win. If there's another candidate on that stage who's, independent, who's up there saying like this whole two-party system is bad and you guys aren't changing anything and Americans are sick of you. It's all about incentives. And if there's nobody on the stage saying that, if there's no voice that's saying that, then they don't have any reason to think that they should change. But if we're out there and we're making our voice heard, being the loudest voice in the room with, our voting reform, humanity first, and all that, they have to change their incentives. They have to change their calculations of how we're going to win, because they have to look at, okay, it's not just Democrats and Republicans. There's a massive coalition of people that don't affiliate with either of them. And those are the people that decide elections. I mean, even, we don't hear a lot about a general third party or independent movement in the media. But what you hear after every single election is independents decided the election. Independents are always the ones deciding the election, because Democrats are going to vote Democrat, Republicans are going to vote Republican, and that makes up about 55% of voters. And then the rest of the 45% of voters who are independent, they're the ones deciding the election, and so we already have that power. We already, without even realizing it, we already have that power where we're the ones deciding who gets into office. And, when it's just between the Democrats and Republicans, then independents go for the one who's less partisan. Independents go for the one who's like, hey, I'm just here to, get things done. I'm not partisan Democrat, partisan Republican. And you're not enough. And so, that's what we're here to change. But by and large, independents are the ones deciding these elections. We are the ones with the power, and Forward Party is saying we should start exercising that power, and I'm totally on board for it.
All right, so we've got a few minutes left. Anyone who wants to talk, you can still hit I think it's a microphone that lets you request to speak. I just wanted to shift a little bit to talk about something that I think is really interesting, that's a little relevant to Forward. So of course in the United States, about 100 years ago, women did not have the right to vote. But one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize about that process is over time, even before women legally got the right to vote, the political establishment started to realize, hey, this is eventually going to win. And when it wins, and there's all these voters who have the ability to express their preferences, I want them to like me. And there's a cascading effect of momentum where people started supporting the right to vote for women, not because they were super principled, unfortunately, but because they kind of saw the writing on the wall. And so that's something that I'm hoping we can achieve as the Forward movement, is just kind of, it's a lot of work. We've all got to roll up our sleeves and get to work. But one of the things I'm hoping is that a lot of these politicians, maybe they're more career oriented than they are devoted to their party, or maybe they're more idealistic, but they've had to be kept in the party, line of thinking because of incentive forces. Maybe as they start to see that we might be able to change the system, maybe we see a change in how even duopoly politicians talk about this stuff. That's something that I hope for, that I think is kind of interesting, because it didn't occur to me until someone pointed it out, that, hey, these politicians, they see that Ford's small now. They're worried about us, I mean, in a good way, right? They're worried that we're going to take all their jobs and fix this country. So, that's just something that I think is interesting and worth considering, is like, hey, even the strategic career-oriented politicians eventually come around to us. It might be that some of these things that we're just about to get over 51%, and then all of a sudden it passes by like 90+%, because everyone's like, well, if this passes, like, I've got to be one of the people who is staying with progress, right? It's just like, oh, you're unsuccessful, until all of a sudden everyone agrees with you, right? Oh, and they were with us the whole time. Okay, well, whatever. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys, because I thought that was really interesting, and it's a dynamic that I hope we can see play out, if we can make it happen.
I'd like to just build off that a little bit, to bring up Kyrsten Sinema leaving the Democratic Party again. Because whether you like her or not is, that's a whole other discussion. But I think what I think is important, what I took from that is that she made the calculation that it is in her political interest, in her interest to keep her job, to be independent. And that is a good sign, in my opinion. If more people are looking at this and saying, oh, I would benefit electorally, it benefits me if I'm not with a party, if I'm independent instead. In my view, that's a good sign that they're starting to notice this, whether it's forward or general independent movement, whatever they're looking at, they are starting to get worried. Like Justin said, they're starting to see that people are abandoning them. And this push for ranked choice voting, ranked choice voting, where it was passed in Nevada, for example, both the parties hated it. Both parties opposed it. They see it as a threat, and they are right to see it as a threat to their power.
It's the party elites who didn't like it, right? A lot of people who vote for Republican and Democratic parties did vote for ranked choice voting, but it's the people who run the party who are like, what? Like, I'm gonna have to compete more. There might be other people who can take my job. Those are the people who are like not happy about it. And it's honestly bizarre, Holden, because I worked phones for that Nevada election, and one of the people that I called, one of the people that I called was a left-wing activist who worked for some left-wing activist organization. He was like, "Yeah, I want this ranked choice voting initiative to pass, but the organization that I work for is against it." So it's pretty wild, the different situations people find themselves in. And as for Sinema, like, I'm hopeful. I'm glad that she thinks it's politically beneficial for her to become independent, but I hope she's real about it. Like, I hope she supports ranked choice voting, hope supports gerrymandering and all these things. If she's just kind of taken our vibe to try and profit off of the hard work that we're doing, I'm not so thrilled about it. But hopefully she, stands up for the right thing. That would be good.
Yeah, I'm not too enthused about, or not exactly holding my breath with her. I don't think she's given many signs that she'll do that. But that aside, it's a good sign that people are realizing that it's in their interest to be independent. But I agree with you. We're, this group, the independent kind of forward party group, we're the ones that are doing that work. We're the ones that are going to change the incentives for our leaders to actually respond to the people. And ranked choice voting is the biggest one for that, where it's very simple.